Senator Sullivan, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and gentlemen, congratulations on your nomination, both of you and your families as well. So appreciate families being here, being supportive. As I told my wife and daughters, you know, you might not be wearing the uniform, but you're serving. Sometimes harder job than it is for the men and women wearing the uniform. So thank you. General, I want to go into a little bit follow-up on our conversation yesterday in my office. I actually really appreciated that. I thought it was a really good meeting. But I want to begin with this, just maybe a little bit of lessons learned from this latest Air Guard initiative on the PEC leveling, as they called it. My own view is that there was a lot of mistakes that happened, and I want to get your commitment to make sure that you work with this committee in my office and me directly to make sure those mistakes don't happen again. The biggest mistake was the Guard at the highest levels didn't check in with the Joint Force on, is this initiative we're undertaking going to impact the readiness of the Joint Force? That's number one. Number two, didn't really kind of, at least from as far as I can tell, didn't check in with the committee. And then number three, particularly as it relates to the great state of Alaska and our incredible guardsmen there, didn't check in with the Northcom commander, Alcom commander, saying, hey, is this initiative going to impact what these men and women do? So what's your thought on that? We had a good discussion, and can you commit to me to make sure that the issues we talked about yesterday don't happen again? It was a big mistake, and you know, a lot of young men and women were making decisions in my state who had served in the military for a long time to essentially get out. Not good. So can you comment on that and make that commitment to me, sir?
Senator, I can make that commitment to you. Communication and transparency, I think, is the hallmark to make sure that we get out to all the stakeholders and understand points of view from each side. And then we need to communicate that up and back and make sure that we understand any of the implications like you talked about. So you have my commitment, if confirmed, to review this in whole and to make sure that I communicate back to this committee as required.
And to check in with the Joint Force, the active duty force, correct?
Yeah, absolutely, Senator. And that's what I meant by all the stakeholders. So I'm talking about combatant commands, MAGCOMs, the Air Force.
Good. Did you hear what happened yesterday in the NORAD region of Alaska last night?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And I was on my systems and talking back and forth with General Moore.
Okay, good. Just for the chairman's knowledge and this committee's knowledge, we had another Russian bear bomber incursion into the Alaska AIDs last night. This is in addition to on July 24th, we had a joint Chinese-Russian strategic bomber task force entered the Alaska AIDs. That's the first time anywhere in American airspace ever that's happened. That's an escalation between our two biggest adversaries. Last August, we had a joint Chinese-Russian naval task force of 12 ships. Admiral, I'm sure you're aware of this, off the coast of Alaska. We already had a 3-ship Chinese naval task force this summer, Russians naval task force this summer, and of course the spy balloons that were shot down February 10th of last year. The reason I'm mentioning that, General, is you know what unit made it happen that our joint force, both naval but in particularly air assets, could go intercept these Russian and Chinese bombers and send them back to their communist countries and tell them, hey, stay out of our AIDs, or maybe you'll get shot down next time? What unit made that happen?
Sir, that'd be the 168th up at Alaskan with their KC-135s.
And what kind of unit is that?
It's an Air National Guard unit, sir.
Right. So some of the most important missions that are happening in the world today, front lines with great power competition in Alaska, are being, there's no way that mission could have happened without the Air National Guard, correct?
That's correct, sir.
The previous Northcom commander mentioned that these Guard member units were operating not at like varsity football, not at varsity college football, but at pro Super Bowl level. That's how good they were in all of these missions that I just mentioned. Would you agree with that?
Senators, I'm very proud of all the service members in the Air National Guard and the Army National Guard and the active forces that continue to do this great power competition to make sure we're always ready and always there. Yes, Senator.
You can just say they were operating Super Bowl. No one's going to hit you up for that one. Wouldn't you agree they were?
Oh,
100%. I mean, look at their missions. Really, really important.
Senator, I've flown up in Alaska. I've been up there multiple times. I was just there last time in December. And yes, you have an incredible airman up in Alaska in the 176 and the 168th.
Let me conclude, Mr. Chairman, with just one final question. It's not really a question. It's more of a gift to the two nominees. I was just in Korea on a CODEL. By the way, I want to compliment the president of Korea, President Yoon. Whenever I've met with him, the number one thing he does, I'm kind of a Korean War history buff, the number one thing he does is he always highlights the heroic actions of American Korean War veterans who saved their country, which they did. Americans know the history of the Korean War. You know, it's always called the Forgotten War. I hate that phrase because it's kind of a pejorative phrase. The president of Korea doesn't forget about it, right? Our service members saved that country, and he acknowledges that every time. I want to thank President Yoon again for his acknowledgement of our Korean War veterans. Many, we don't have a lot left. I have a book one of my favorite books is called This Kind of War. Have either of you read it? Have you read it, General?
No, sir.
Have you read it, Admiral?
Yes, sir.
You have? I'm going to give you a copy anyways. I always give this to our nominees. The reason I do, this is a really good book. It's about the Korean War. Most of your peers at the 4-star level, General, will have read it. And what it describes, though, it describes America. World War II, at the end of World War II, we had the fiercest, most lethal military in the history of the world, literally. That's not an exaggeration. By 1950, we had a military that couldn't stop a peasant army from invading South Korea. And it goes into why we lacked readiness. It was uniform and civilian leaders in our military who made horrible decisions. And in the summer of 1950, thousands of young Americans, mostly soldiers, paid the ultimate sacrifice because the leadership of our country at the highest levels of DOD failed. So I'm going to give this to both of you. I highly recommend you read it. And Admiral, you might want to skim it or just put it on your bookshelf. But congratulations to both of you. And these are really important positions. And I'm going to follow up with some questions for the record for both of you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Sullivan. Gentlemen, thank you for your testimony. I look forward to